I was just getting out of the shower when my cell phone rang. Cursing, I wrapped a towel around myself and hurried into the bedroom to grab it from the dresser. Darlene had already left for last-minute Christmas shopping, and we planned to meet at the consultant's office later. Before I could say hello, a cheerful male voice said, "Hi, Darlene. Is there any chance that we can meet today?" "What the hell are you talking about?" I said angrily. There was a gasp, then 2 or 3 seconds of complete silence, then the click of the shutdown. Stunned, I looked at the phone. What the hell was that? After a minute, I realized that it was Darlene's phone, not mine. They were the same model, but I had a crack on the glass of the screen that was missing from what I was holding in my hand. She must have grabbed the wrong phone on her way to the door. Darlene and I have been married for 6 years. We have no children by mutual consent, and the last few months have been quite difficult. We still got along, and of course she still loved me. From 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes at least on her initiative, we were reduced to 1 or 2 times a month, and even then only at my insistence. And when we made love, she was passive and unenthusiastic, not the passionate and enthusiastic partner she was at the beginning of our marriage. We talked about the problem over and over again. Darlene kept telling me that it wasn't anything special. She was just tired, overly busy at work, blah blah blah. Except that nothing has changed in her job. No major projects, no terrible deadlines, no promotions. Every time I talked about it, Darlene replied that she was feeling better. And sometimes that night we made love, but everything quickly came back to the same thing. I ask, she refuses. By the end of September, I was sick of it, and in the evening after dinner I sat her down on the couch. "Darlene, I love you, but I'm not ready to keep going like this. Something has to change, or I'll file for divorce." She looked at me, completely stunned. Divorce? Dear God, isn't this too radical? Darlene, do you know how bad this is? I decided to find out. In the last 3 months, we've had 3 quickie hookups, plus 1 lovemaking. Only 4 times since the 1st of July, and in that time you've turned me down 18 times. I'm not going to live like this anymore. She looked down at her feet, obviously feeling very uncomfortable. Baby, I'm sorry. You know that I love you, and I can do better and I will. I promise. I'm just so tired. That's not enough, Darlene. I want to get 2 promises from you, or I'm going to see a lawyer on Monday. She looked at me cautiously, and I continued. First of all, I want you to meet with Dr. Evans and get a full checkup to make sure there are no physical problems. And secondly, I want us to start dating a marriage counselor. A marriage counselor? But nothing bad happened to us. No, it happened. Are you listening to me, Darlene? We live together almost like brother and sister. Whether you want to admit it or not, something really went wrong, and we're either going to try to fix it, or I'm leaving. There was a long argument, full of Darlene's tears, but I was adamant, and in the end, I got my way. She met with Dr. Evans, who confirmed her complete health, and we started meeting once a week with Eileen Archer, a consultant recommended by our friends Brad and Allison, who worked with her a couple of years ago. We consulted for about 2 months and everything was going well, or at least that's what I thought. We talked a lot about our relationships, about each of us jobs, about the families we grew up in, and what our parents' marriages are like. Some of them seemed boring or inappropriate, but Eileen was sure that we had made progress, although life in our bedroom had not improved. Now, standing in the bedroom, staring at Darlene's phone as if a snake had crawled out of it, I had to think. Did I just discover the real reason why she didn't want to make love to me anymore? Was it that simple? Was I replaced? Does someone else step in and play the role of a traditional husband? As far as I could see, nothing had changed in Darlene's schedule. She no longer worked late, did not go on mysterious shopping trips or on dates with girls, did not come home flushed, disheveled, and did not immediately run to the shower. But that didn't mean she wasn't making love to some asshole, just doing it with care. I took her phone and checked the receive calls, and to my surprise, there was only one call, the one I had just answered. The caller was identified as CM. I pressed reply and waited for the beeps to ring. Unsurprisingly, the guy didn't dare pick up the phone, and the call was transferred to voicemail. "This is Chris Mason. Leave a message and I'll call you back. Have a nice day." I hung up the phone. I recognized the name. He was another employee at the brokerage firm where Darlene worked, but in some other department. She mentioned him to me once or twice, but I never met him. I checked Darlene's phone more carefully. Not only all previous received calls were deleted, but also the lists of missed and sent calls. Who needed to waste time deleting all this? Darlene was obviously covering her tracks. I headed to the office, looking for statements on my mobile and home phone for the past few months. Darlene paid the bills, so I never had a reason to look for them. I found all the bills for our home phone in the desk, but the search did not reveal any calls from Chris Mason, or at least from his cell phone. But there were no cell phone records for the last 8 months. I looked in the checkbook, all the mobile phone bills were paid, so Darlene must have hidden or thrown away the receipts, no doubt because they listed calls to Chris Mason. I got to Eileen's office about 20 minutes early. Darlene's car wasn't in the parking lot yet, so I sat down and thought for a while. If I was right, if Darlene cheated on me with Chris Mason or someone else, our marriage is over. She may love me, but it's not worth a damn if she spreads her legs for someone else. I guess she loved me. Otherwise, why would she want to stay together? Why bother visiting a consultant? Besides, it seems lying to both the consultant and me. But if she thought that she could eat a fish and, well, she would have to find out that she was completely wrong. I thought first of meeting Darlene in Eileen's office today, sharing the contents of Chris's call, and demanding an explanation. But I realized that this was not enough for me. I wanted proof, and then I wanted to spectacularly end our marriage by wiping Darlene's nose. I was angry and hurt, and she has to pay for what she did to me. And I'm in a much better place for our last confrontation than Eileen's office. So I went inside, and after a while Darlene appeared, kissed me, and we went to a meeting. Eileen made us talk about the usual nonsense, how we handled arguments in our relationship, and whether the difference in styles was based on our experience and how our parents argued, etc. I played along, looked thoughtful and serious, tried to give plausible answers, and managed not to grind my teeth too much. I wanted to grab her by the throat and strangle her right in front of Eileen. Towards the end of the session, Eileen gave me a chance to get one good reason to tease, even if only slightly. She said something like, "I know this is hard for both of you, but gradually we will learn about your marriage, about the expectations of each of you for it. And your honesty actually helps to create an atmosphere in which we can move the conversation from the general to a productive discussion of your problems as well." I stepped in to say, "Thanks for saying that, Eileen. Sometimes it was difficult for me, but I try to be completely honest and frank. It seems that this is the only way to achieve anything. Darlene, could you tell me that this is also true for you?" I watched her as she blushed slightly and avoided my eyes. Instead, she looked at Eileen, nodded, and said, "Absolutely, Alan. I feel the same way." I wonder if Eileen noticed Darlene's obvious discomfort. She didn't comment on it, but it seemed to me that she looked at Darlene intently for a moment or two. After the session, we crossed the street to the diner to have a quick lunch. When she went to the ladies' room, I quickly took my cell phone out of her purse and put it in my pocket. Then I went outside to buy a newspaper from a vending machine, and while there, I turned off Darlene's phone, wrapped it in newspaper, and put it in the bottom of the trash can. I thought Chris Mason would be frantically trying to contact Darlene to let her know what had happened, so I was going to make sure he didn't have a chance to get to her. During lunch, Darlene and I chatted about nothing, mostly about her shopping and what gifts we would still need the next day when we were going to her parents' house for Christmas dinner. We made a list of what we needed, and then went to a row of crowded shops to buy the last few things. I was amazed at my ability to keep my mouth shut, to pretend to be nice when all I wanted to do was hit her. But either I was a better actor than I thought, or Darlene was too distracted, but she didn't notice that something was wrong. At home, during dinner, the wired phone rang 3 times, and each time I jumped up to pick it up. The first 2 were just silence. For the 3rd time, about 20 minutes later, a female voice that I had never heard before asked, "Can I talk to Darlene, please?" I wondered if Chris, in desperation, had hired some friend to give Darlene a message from him, and said, "Can I find out who's calling?" The voice answered, Iris from work." Smiling to myself, I said, "What should I refer to?" She was at a dead end. There was a short silence, and then she said, "Oh, that? Well, there's an account that we're both working on, and I have a couple of questions about it." "On Christmas Eve?" I said, "I'm afraid she won't be able to answer the phone right now, but I'll be sure to give her a message. Have a nice evening." And I hung up the phone with a smile. Darlene looked at me questioningly when I returned, and I said, "Some lady is conducting a survey. Can you believe them calling on Christmas Eve?" I could tell Darlene was a little worried. She waited for a few minutes, then casually went into another room, no doubt checking her cell phone. She came back with her purse and looked worried. Darling, do you know where my mobile phone might be? I remember taking it from the dresser when I watered it this morning. Gee, Darlene, I have no idea. Is it not in your wallet? Did you look near your car? Or maybe you left it somewhere at the mall? She went and searched the car, but to no avail, and I sat and smiled. In the end, she gave up, and I promised to give her a new one as a New Year's gift. Don't count on it, dear. I thought to myself, I'm sure her next step would be to try to call Chris if she could get rid of me for even a few minutes. Several times during the evening, I noticed Darlene watching me out of the corner of her eye. I wonder if she hopes to get a chance to get to the phone. Finally, she said, Honey, I'm a little tired. I'm going upstairs and just watch TV for a while, okay? Of course, Darlene, I replied. Actually, it sounds great. I'll just put the dishes in the sink and let's go together. She smiled at me, but I could see that she was annoyed. An hour later, she asked me to check that there were no trash cans on the side of the road. When I reminded her that tomorrow was Christmas and there was no pickup truck, she turned away from me with obvious disappointment. When we went to bed, she didn't have a chance to call anyone. On Christmas morning, I got up early, had breakfast while Darlene was sleeping, and made some preparations. Then he went into the bedroom and gently woke her up. Good morning, dear. Merry Christmas. I gave her a fake smile. Coffee is ready in the kitchen. I'm leaving. I'll see you at your parents' house later. She sat down awkwardly. It's only 8:30, Alan. Where are you going? I smiled again. I need to pick up a last-minute gift for you, dear. But don't worry. I'll see you there at 2. She protested, saying, weren't all the shops closed today? And can't I come home and pick her up later? But I was already heading for the door, blowing her a kiss. At 8:45 a.m., I knocked on Chris Mason's apartment door, finding his address in Darlene's office directory. I expected him to be in town today, as he mentioned that he was looking forward to meeting Darlene the next day. When he opened the door, he was wearing a bathrobe and looked sleepy, a tall, good-looking guy, about 25 or so. Yes, that's right. What the hell is this? He stopped talking and retreated into his living room, and I went in and quickly closed the door behind me. I was holding a Hammerly 208C air pistol aimed directly at his chest. It wasn't such a deadly weapon, just something I used to practice at a short distance, but Mason clearly didn't know that. He looked absolutely terrified. Let me introduce myself, Chris. I am Alan Rohatton, Darlene's husband, your current sexual partner. His eyes widened, and he took another step back. Hey, kid, calm down, okay? I do not know what you are. Anyway, Chris, do you really think I can't figure out what's going on? Now this is what's going to happen. We'll sit here in your living room and have a nice chat. If I don't get the answers I need, I'll shoot you once or twice in the balls and leave you bleeding. If you decide to be more responsive, then after a while we will visit some of my friends and talk to them, and then I will leave you to live your life. Understood? He looked at me cautiously, nodding his head slightly. All I have to do is talk to you? I nodded. Yeah, and I will leave. Leave you alone. Damn it, it's bad if you get shot, isn't it? Chris and I had a little chat, and he told me all the things I wanted to know. Then I controlled him as he took out his clothes and took them to the bathroom to shower and get dressed. After that, he made us sandwiches in his kitchen, and we ate. I kept the gun pointed at him the whole time. We didn't talk much, but it was good for me. At 1:45, we got out and got into my car. I gave Chris the address and told him to drive while I was sitting in the back seat with a gun in my hand. When we got to Darlene's parents' house, I ordered Chris to park 4 doors away so they couldn't see my car. I noticed that Darlene's car was already there, along with the car that belonged to her sister Barbara and her husband. But I wanted to make an impressive entrance, so we sat and waited until 2:30 before I pulled Chris out of the car and walked him to their driveway. No games now, okay, Chris? I asked. Do you remember the agreement? We walk in, I make some introductory remarks, you tell your story, and I leave. And you're saving your testicles. My gun will be in my pocket, but it will appear in less than 1 second if you do some shit to me. He looked somewhere between uneasy and wild terror. Don't worry, dude. I'll play it the way you said. When we rang the doorbell, Darlene's mom, Sarah, answered. Her friendly smile turned into a puzzled one when she saw Chris. Hi, Alana, who is this? Hi, Sarah, Merry Christmas, I said, kissing her on the cheek as we entered the foyer. This is Chris. He's only here for a few minutes. Ignoring her confusion, I took Chris by the hand and led him straight to the dining room, where the family was just about to start eating. Apparently, they were going to start without me. "Merry Christmas to everyone," I said with a joyful smile, looking at the surprised faces. Darlene's father Tom was sitting there, and her sister Barbara with her husband Mark and their two boys, Teddy and Ben. And then Darlene was sitting. There was a vague but pleasant, even anticipatory expression on everyone else's face. Here is a pleasant surprise, they thought, an additional guest. But Darlene looked pale as a ghost. Her mouth opened a couple of centimeters, and I thought she might faint. "Attention everyone, this is Chris. He's a colleague of Darlene's, and he has a little story to tell us. Come on, Chris." Darlene got to her feet. "No, Alan, it's not." I quickly interrupted her. "It's okay, Darlene, I think everyone should hear this." She took a few quick steps towards the door, but I grabbed her arm and hugged her tightly. "Come on, Chris." Darlene tried to get rid of me by saying, "No, no, Chris, don't." I put my free hand over her mouth to silence her while her parents looked on in utter amazement. Chris reluctantly began to speak. "Darlene and I had one novel. It started in April and continues to this day." Darlene's family gasped, then stared at Chris, then at Darlene and me. After a long pause, Barbara lifted Teddy and Ben from their chairs and pushed them into the living room, where she turned on the TV, then returned and closed the door behind her. "Go on, Chris," I smiled. "We met at work. There are several massage rooms in the fitness center, the doors of which can be locked. We do this about twice a week, meeting at different times, so no one noticed the pattern. We work on different floors of the building, so no one realized that we were leaving at the same time. There are showers where we clean up afterwards." Darlene continued to struggle with me. She tried to bite my hand, but I held her tight. "And Chris," I said, "what exactly were you two doing together? Please be specific." He didn't meet my eyes. "We are mostly making love." I liked the look of horror on Darlene's mother's face. Darlene stopped struggling with me, and I took my hand away from her mouth. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face. "And how does it feel to use Darlene?" I asked pleasantly. I knew what his answer would be. I made him practice a couple of times to make everything go smoothly. She's very hot." To my surprise, Darlene's relatives still hadn't moved. I expected one of them to try to put an end to it. "Did she ever talk about me?" I asked. "When were you planning to meet next time?" "Tomorrow. She was going to tell you that she needs to work in the office. We planned to be together for about 3 hours. We were looking forward to having more time this time." "And how long do you think this novel will last?" He said, "Probably a few more weeks." I would have been happy to continue, but Darlene said it was time to stop. She said that you insisted on counseling because your bed life had dropped a lot and she was worried that you would figure out what was going on. She said that New Year's Day would be the day of breaking up with me, but then she laughed and said that it might take her a few weeks to bring everything to an end. There was silence in the room while Darlene's family looked at us in shock. Me, Darlene, Chris, everyone was standing. Darlene was sobbing, covering her face with her hands, not trying to say anything. I went up to Tom, took his hand and shook it. "Bye, Tom. I loved being your son-in-law. You and Sarah are good people, and you deserve better as a daughter than this cheating fool. Of course, I also deserved better for myself as a wife than she did." I went to Sarah, kissed her on the cheek and said, "Bye, Sarah. I'm sorry, I'm not staying for lunch. It might be a little awkward." Darlene fell to the floor. She was still crying, just sitting there with her face in her hands. I leaned over and said, "Don't come home tonight, Darlene. Your things will be packed outside the garage by tomorrow morning, and I'll change the locks." And not, I repeat, don't try to talk to me. You're not going to say anything I want to hear. She looked at me, lines of dripping mascara crossing her face. "Alan, dear, I am?" I said no. Without saying a word, I turned to the table, smiled, and, waving my hand to everyone, headed for the door. Chris had the good sense not to ask me to give him a ride home.